Secrets Yoga and Astrology weekly video blog. So this one's going to be a very difficult one for me because this one's very close to my heart because I went through a lot of these problems myself, but I don't feel like I should stay silent on this issue because I see so many people suffering unnecessarily, or at least, here's how I put it. It really disheartens me to see people actually be in the same situation that I was in. And, you know, if you're watching this and you're really thinking about suicide, at least watch this presentation. You know, I'm going to be tacking a little bit different because I've actually went through some of these problems myself. A few years ago, actually, it was very, very difficult. And I'll be getting into that too, along with my astrology chart. But I want to take a look at a couple of charts and actually what I've learned. I'm going to actually kind of go tell you my story and what I've learned through my personal experience. And I just hope that somebody out there watching it, at least maybe it gets through to them or maybe it helps them. So I'm calling this, how can astrology help the suicidal? Well, first let's take a look at Kate Spade again. So I did her chart 2 days ago when she committed suicide. And it was very tough to see because I saw a lot of difficult placements in her chart. So with Kate Spade, one of the things that, sorry, let me just get rid of this toolbar there. All right, whoops, yeah, we're gonna be doing Anthony Bourdain next. So Kate Spade, we take a look at her chart, and the first thing that really, when it comes to suicidal ideation or suicidal behavior, or just at least those thoughts, or at least mental illness, what we're really looking for is an afflicted moon, and especially a moon that's in a difficult position, and also to the timing of moon dashas. And also this does have to, this plays into transits. So taking a look at Kate Spade's chart again, her moon is in Scorpio, and it's also too aspected by Rahu here. And when Rahu aspects the moon, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that is aspected by Rahu because Rahu aspects 5, 9, and 7. So anyway, when it's aspected by the north node of the moon, it tends to agitate the moon. It makes people very emotionally agitated. It's very difficult to try to work with that energy because especially when the moon is in Scorpio, because what's happening is Rahu's churning up the emotions over and over and over again, and these people really don't get very much relief from that. This is something that's a natal placement too, so this is happening throughout their life. So not only when they get triggered, they stay triggered, and they stay triggered for a long time. And so the moon being in Scorpio is afflicted because it's debilitated. Then it's also too aspected by Rahu here. Follow that up with her going into her Rahu dasha here with the moon. Oof, that's a lot of stuff. So really too, this also gets the moon gets activated in its Mahadasha or its Antradasha. So if you have this placement in your chart, you probably already feel this, and you need to be very aware, very careful, and very understanding with yourself that that's what's going on. So now let's take a look to the tragic Mr. Bourdain. Wow, this one really hurt to see this one too. I'm going to try to get through this here. Looking at Mr. Bourdain's chart, he also has an afflicted moon, but his moon is a little bit afflicted in a different sense because it's aspected instead of by Rahu, it's aspected by the north node of the moon here. So this is also this is a 9 aspect here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so this is actually aspected by Ketu in the 9th aspect here. And of course, it aspects the whole house. Not to mention that this is also aspected by Uranus. Uranus is almost exactly opposite the moon. And whenever any of the outer planets have a difficult aspect to it, and actually too, it's also aspected by Neptune here. So he has a 1, 2, 3, a triple whammy here. So when we're talking about difficult aspects, we're looking for stuff that's aspected by one of the nodes, or a difficult aspect being an opposition or a square. The oppositions and squares are the ones that you really need to look out for. This can also too be activated by inconjunctions, which are basically something that's going to be 6 houses away, but it needs to have an orb of about 2 or 3 degrees to really be effective here. This is almost an exact conjunction or opposition here with Uranus. And then also too, Neptune's only about 3 degrees. This is a square, this is an opposition. I'm just going around the chart to see if there's anything else. So top that off with the transit. So he luckily isn't in any of like these. Only is he in a difficult dasha? So he's in his Saturn Sun dasha. So Saturn here being in the fourth house can make somebody feel a little bit restricted. But I actually take that back. Saturn's also aspecting his Sun here with the three aspects. So yikes. Man, this sucks. It sucks reading this guy's chart. And the sun really doesn't come into play too much here, but you know, he was also working his way into Saturn Moon Dasha here too. So you see all this stuff, and also too, you have to remember the transit. Ketu and Mars are here too, so this is aspecting going through that house. This is in the sixth house too, and that's in the house of sickness, man. You know, sometimes it really sucks looking at these charts, but we have to do this stuff in order, because what I want you to do is take a look at your chart, and if you're really, really suffering, I mean really, really suffering, see if you have any aspects and see how you can make sense of this. Like if you have like a Uranus opposite the moon, that shows something that has chaotic emotions. And you know, the moon in Capricorn too feels pretty restricted. So you know, this just kind of goes to show some of these difficult perspectives. You know, it's a shame too because his moon is conjunct Altair, and people that have Altair in their charts really do very well. So he did do very well, but it seems like this transit just finally got to him, man. It was like, so, all right, enough with Mr. Bourdain. Here's my story. First of all, these things play into suicide. First of all, I came from a dysfunctional home. I grew up, let's see, my dad was in the Vietnam War. And if you go back and take a look at the Memorial Day thing, I did his chart. And so my dad actually got Agent Orange poisoning, post-traumatic stress disorder, and all the bad crap that came from being a Vietnam vet. And he eventually, he succumbed to cancer when I was 16. So he actually, the father figure, was removed from the home at a not a very early age, but at an age where, you know, he kind of got cancer too when I was like in 8th grade. So from 8th grade to my sophomore year, he really wasn't around. He was either sick and then he died. So that added to the dysfunctionality. Okay. And also this is something that you need to be very wary of in your chart. And I think too, this plays into, Kate's chart. From a very early age, I wanted to be liked by people more than anything else. Like my friends were my family. And so the problem of that is people then used me for what I could give them. And so what I want you to be aware of is and I was told this by my guru, Goswami Kriyananda, and I've really seen it play out. As he said, one of the worst traits that somebody can have is wanting to be liked by other people, because what happens is you start to sacrifice yourself. And you look at number 4, instead of building, this is the mistake that I made. Instead of building self-worth and self-reliance, I doubled down on my validation-seeking behavior. So instead of trying to resolve my own problems when I was younger, and then of course, you know, I used drugs to numb my intense feelings, mostly with alcohol and pot. Alcohol was my drug of choice, by the way. It was very effective. It worked really well. And then also too, I was put on psych drugs when I was 25. And so there's a delaying effect. My dad died when I was 16, but I really started feeling this stuff when my Jupiter dasha started. And my Jupiter is actually placed in my Mercury dasha, which is an aspect to my moon. And or I'm sorry, it's placed in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, which aspects my moon. All right. So anyway, what I'm getting at this is when you take a look at your chart, you can get a very good idea of the intense feelings you have and how you can deal with them. This is where astrology is so, so, so powerful. And really, if I hadn't gone to see therapists actually pointed me at yoga. And through yoga, I got into Vedic astrology, and that's really where all this stuff started to blossom for me. So I was put on psych drugs when I was 25. So here's a list of the drugs that I have been on. And I warn people constantly about psych drugs. You know, it's a double-edged sword, and this is a very individual, very personalized decision. However, the one thing that I really worry about is polydrugging. So, for instance, here's how it started. I was being the way that I am, I had a very difficult time sleeping. That's at K2 in that 12th house. And so I was put on Ambien for sleep, and Ambien is a really strong drug. Then I started getting anxiety from lack of sleep, so then I was put on Klonopin. Then, now check this out, and this is why you need to know yourself very, very well. I started getting restless leg syndrome from a very, very early age, and then so what this would do is it made me I couldn't sleep, and so I'd get around, move around, and my father was diagnosed with bipolar. So I thought that there was some sort of genetic component to this, and I thought my moving around was mania. Well, it turned out it was restless leg syndrome. So then I got put on Lamictal for bipolar disorder, Valium also for anxiety, Depakote for bipolar, and then also too I was taking Vicodin for my tooth pain. I actually had to get a tooth replaced. I couldn't afford to get the tooth replaced, so I'd have work done on it. Now finally got it replaced and I didn't have that issues. But what I'm trying to get at is all of these psych drugs really did a number of they did a number on my self identity, and I was actually able to wean off of this stuff. I'm no longer on any psych drugs. And what I did is I really worked to try to build my self esteem and try to really build on my self concept as an individual. So when I was able to start building my self concept, it let's see, it really helped me kind of gain an insight to myself. All right. So not only with that, if you're on non-psych drugs, amlodipine, I took for all of these, I was put on for high blood pressure. Well, a little did I know that all these cause depression. So if you are on any other medications, you need to be very sure that these medications aren't affecting your, how do I put it? They're not affecting your level of depression. So like all of these really lower your heart rate and they tend to cause depression. And of course, too, they tend to make you eat a lot. So I was eating and I gained so much weight. I've lost about 60 pounds now, and I'm so thankful for that. I still got more to lose, but my diet, I'm actually on the right track. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you my birth chart. So this is mine. If you want to look up the dirty details, I was born on, let's see, February 16th, 1978, 10:10 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So there's all the dirty deets on me. I know, like John Paulo de Coco says, astrologers should make their birth charts public. Well, here's mine. Now, the reason why I brought this up is I wanted to show you how my chart here. Now, my moon is actually in the opposite position of let's say Kate Spades. It's actually exalted. However, it still has an aspect here from Rahu. It's got an inconjunction from Uranus, about 1 degree. It's opposed by Neptune, and it's also has this aspect. It's also got a trine aspect from Mercury and Pluto, which has a balancing effect. So I'm actually lucky. A lot of people don't have these actual balancing aspects or trines in their chart. So what happens is all of this focus gets pushed on the moon, and really too, if you take a look at this, is in the second house for me. So I have to be very careful. Like really, what I eat, what I do, and what I say, and all the second house related activities are very well related to my moon. So this really just kind of shows you how all of this stuff kind of plays in. Now, the nice thing for me is I got a strong Mars here, and the Mars being an Aries ascendant really gives me the willpower, and it gives me the ability to really overcome a lot of the difficulties that I had in my life. So for me, I'm always striving. I'm always striving. I'm working at it. This does not mean that you have to have this in your chart. You can always develop the habit of striving. And just when you're trying to work and get off of psych drugs or work with this stuff, you have to be very patient with yourself. So now what I want to do is I just want to get into a conclusion. Great. So what can you do about it? Well, first of all, and this is based on my own experience. If you're feeling suicidal, usually there is going to be some sort of causation in the birth chart. So what you can do, number one, understand your own nature through meditation. I will never stop hammering on the point that your astrology chart isn't written in stone. It implies, it doesn't compel. What do I mean by that? Well, if you meditate enough, you're going to understand the nature of all these planets and how they operate on a very subtle level. Not only that, and I specifically practice Kriya Yoga. With Kriya Yoga, you can actually go into the chart, into those samskars, and wipe them out. And let me tell you, 75% of my healing has been a direct result of me developing it's called the Kriya Yoga City, and being able to go into my subconscious and start rewriting my whole story. That changes the birth chart, by the way. So learn how to step outside yourself and get good at managing your own crises. So one of the things that I also see people do is they tell people, call the suicide crisis line. If you're really feeling okay, well, that in general, that's good advice. However, if you're actually in that situation, first of all, you need to look and see if any of those psych drugs have suicidal ideation associated with it. I've been in like Lamictal support groups. Oh my God, so many of those people just out of nowhere, never really wanted to commit suicide until they started taking that drug. So you need to be very aware of how drugs are affecting you, okay? So when you step outside of yourself and you learn to manage your own crises, even if you're in a very dark period, it will at least get you through that time. Okay. And this is something that a counselor can help you with. Also, too, cognitive behavioral therapy is extremely helpful. You need to learn to question the voices in your head and challenge them. Because one of the mistakes I see people make is, and this is a yogic concept, they identify themselves with their internal dialogue. First of all, do you own your internal dialogue? Are these ideas yours? Or is it something that somebody else pushed onto you and you're just reliving this over and over again? That's something else too that will be very helpful for you and something that will get you very long too. Join a Facebook support group. I like Facebook because it's free. Okay, well, for the most part, net neutrality is gone, but no. So Facebook is free. So you can join a Facebook support group and get a lot of great advice there. Also, too, are you doing enough in life to provide yourself with a higher purpose? Extremely important. Look at your 10th house. Your 10th house will explain your dharma in life. I really think that a lot of the suicide that we see right now is related to people not really living up to a higher purpose. And if you read a lot of the Vedic literature, having a higher purpose or dharma is essential to life. If you don't have a higher purpose, you're just kind of going through life and you don't have a rudder. Secondly, reach out to family or friends and do not isolate yourself. If your family and friends are bastards, which I know a bunch of people that do have bad families, try to get outside of yourself. Maybe go. You know what? Go, even if you're not an alcoholic, go to AA. AA is almost always open. Also, too, is your diet right? I mean, I did not know this, but stuff like caffeine, alcohol, which technically are drugs, too much sugar, things like that really affect your mood. And if you're somebody that is very susceptible to blood sugar spikes and dips, you need to be sure that you're managing your blood sugar too. So, because that plays so much into mental health, man. And also to learn how psych drugs and polydrugging works. What are polydrugging? Well, let's say I go into the doctor. He's like, you have high blood pressure. He puts you on the high blood pressure medication. You start feeling depressed and tired. You go to the doctor. Okay, well here's oh, geez, we'll just say Zoloft. Here's Zoloft to help with your depression. Then you go in, you start taking your Zoloft. Your depression gets worse, or you start having anxiety. Okay, here's a benzo to deal with. So if you see what I'm saying, it just keeps layering and layering and layering on top of each other. And I personally think that one of the damning things against psych drugs is that the fact that you have to take more drugs on top of other drugs, especially over time, really kind of shows its lack of efficacy. It shows that it just doesn't work. So, all right. So that's all I had to do. That's all I had to say today, man. I mean, if you're in these situations, man, you know what? Email me. Just reach out to me. If you need somebody to talk to, just shoot me an email. It's no big secrets yoga. I'm sorry, no BS yoga at gmail.com. Tell me your story. If you want to book a consultation, it's not too expensive either. You know what? If you're having a really tough time, I'll cut you a break too on the price. Because I can actually take a quick look at your chart for maybe like $20 or something like that and give you a quick 20-minute consultation. I will be more than happy to do that for you. So, but until then, take care, and I really hope that you found this to benefit. Thank you.